Look at this Whopper. Now look at this Whopper. Does this Whopper make you want to buy that Whopper? No, you would feel lied to. And Burger King just got into some hot water because of it. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Food Theory, the channel where having it your way doesn't lead to legal ramifications. But I can't say the same thing about Burger King, though. Back in March 2022, 19 folks from 13 different states formed a class action lawsuit against Burger King, alleging that their IRL Whoppers don't measure up to the juicy, fresh, delectable-looking Whoppers in their advertisements. They were saying the King is exaggerating the size of his meat. Men, am I right? They claim Burger King is using oversized meat patties and ingredients in their ads and menu displays to make it appear that the burgers are approximately 35% larger in size with nearly double the amount of meat. Now, if your first instinct hearing this was, yeah, duh, it's an ad, you'd be on the same page as most other judges that have thrown out similar cases over the years. I mean, what are Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's supposed to do? Use their real burgers for ads? No one would ever go back. But what makes this lawsuit notable is that the judge presiding over the case has decided that the claims might actually have some merit. Instead of throwing the case out like so many others have done, the judge is having it his way and making the King stand trial and defend his burgers. So today, I want to look into whether or not his monarchy will crumble. Does it actually look like BK broke the law, or is this lawsuit just a greasy, fast food, fast cash grab? Like I mentioned, BK isn't the only fast food or fast casual establishment that's been hit with a lawsuit alleging deception. In May 2022, a man filed a lawsuit against McDonald's and Wendy's for unfair and deceptive practices due to false advertising in their ads and on their menus. The burgers, he claimed, were the most egregious, and accused Wendy and Ronald of undercooking their meat to make them appear 15 to 20% larger than the beef patties that were actually served to customers, since the fully cooked patties tend to shrink and look less appetizing. Likewise, Taco Bell was hit with a lawsuit by a guy claiming that they used double the meat in their photos and commercials during 2023, when certain ingredients, like meat, were struck by inflation, causing prices to go up and customers to look to Taco Bell for a cheaper alternative. But the Mexican pizzas, Crunchwrap Supremes, and various other menu items appeared to have significantly less meat, beans, and other fixins than they do in the ads. Starbucks was accused of skimping on fruit ingredients in their refreshers. Buffalo Wild Wings was accused of not using meat from a chicken's actual wing in their boneless buffalo wings. Subway was accused of using 200% less meat in their IRL sandwiches. And the list goes on. Oftentimes, like in the cases of McDonald's and Wendy's, the judge will throw out the case, citing that the reasonable, average customer would most likely not be misled by advertisements, and that the images of food put forth by these chains were no different than other companies' use of visually appealing images to foster positive associations with their products. Translation: everybody exaggerates their product in ads, and most people know that. But the lawsuits against BK and Starbucks were allowed by judges to move forward, denying the respective establishments' motions to dismiss their trials. In the case of Starbucks, the judge determined that a significant portion of reasonable consumers would assume that all of their refreshers contained real fruit based on their menu signs and advertisements. And it seems that the judge facing down the Burger King is heading down the same road. The lawsuits against B-Dubs and Subway are still pending, but if Burger King and Starbucks are found guilty of deceiving their customers, we might start seeing a shift in how these false advertisement cases are handled. So what exactly is the line between deception and reasonable exaggeration? At what point does an appetizing advertisement become a straight-up lie? And what are the parameters already in place to prevent these companies from going too far? To start answering some of these questions, it's helpful to understand the history of staging food for consumers' eyes. In the 1930s, color film photography allowed food to be captured realistically, almost exactly as it appeared to the naked eye. Advertisers started using color around this time in images of their products, and cookbooks began implementing colorful images into the pages of their recipes, bringing dishes to life that were formerly dull in black and white. Commercial food photography blossomed as a new career path, and companies found that their goods sold better when their customers could actually visualize what an all-American Thanksgiving dinner would look like. But it didn't take long for advertisers to realize that they could exaggerate a little bit to get consumers even more excited about their products. Food and beverage brands began implementing behind-the-scenes tricks to get the food in their images to look even better than the real thing, like swapping out melty scoops of ice cream in a dish for a thick hunk of mashed potatoes. Under a photographer's hot lights, cold food would melt, lettuce would wilt, and hot food would lose its juicy, steamy sheen. So they improvised. Oil was painted onto dry food to make it look fresher, and hairspray or deodorant was applied when a more matte look was needed. Honestly, Honestly, all the tricks used in food photography are astounding. It's actually a really cool art. Ironically, although it was initially invented to accurately capture an image of real life, the introduction of color development ultimately led to less of an interest in realistic, authentic depictions of food. A homemade hamburger just wasn't as appealing to look at as a burger expertly crafted by an art director, and consumers started gravitating to brands that showcased their food in an idealized way, the way folks wanted their food to look like, even if it wasn't true to life. This shift completely changed the way humans engage with the meals they ate. It was no longer enough to simply taste a delicious meal. People wanted to savor these dishes with their eyes too. Chefs began to consider the preparations of their meal as seriously as they considered the flavors, learning to create visually appealing plates that were a feast for both the eyes and the stomach. Food stylists likewise began to experiment with different props, backgrounds, and lighting to enhance and highlight different colors and textures. Food photos were staged to tell a story about the preparation, origin, and cultural significance of their subjects, allowing consumers to immerse themselves fully in the dining experience. Brands today are still using these exact same techniques, but advancements in technology have only expanded their playing field. Once upon a time, it was enough to sell an ice-cold bottle of Coca-Cola in a flat black and white image. Now, Coke has a CGI polar bear in a bright red Christmas sweater convincing you to drink a glass. Today, many companies have a strict policy of only allowing real, edible food in their ads, which means that mashed potato ice cream is fair game. But that isn't always the case. And even modern food stylists have admitted to using non-food enhancements to make their dishes pop in photos and commercials. Need to make a stack of buttermilk pancakes look extra rich and syrupy? Try dousing them in engine oil. Has the skin of your Thanksgiving turkey started to dry out after the third day of shooting? Slap a coat of wood varnish on there to make it look moist and golden brown again. Cereal looking soggy after soaking in milk? Replace that milk with an inedible combination of water and PVC glue to keep your Cheerios looking fresh on film. Then there's all the sneaky props used in staging to make the food appear flawless. If you've ever wondered why the burgers you grill at home look lackluster, it's probably because you're not wedging pieces of cardboard or chunks of a makeup sponge between toppings to make them look less droopy. You're also probably not painstakingly gluing the perfect amount of sesame seeds to the top of your bun, nor are you using a blowtorch on the edges of the cheese to get that perfect melt. Some food stylists even choose to undercook the burger meat to make it look bigger and fresher, and others might soak the meat in oil to make it look like it's dripping in savory juices. And the list goes on. Legally, there is a limit to how much brands and advertisers are allowed to blur the line between real food that's been expertly styled and a Frankenmeal presented as an edible dish. Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act prohibits unfair or deceptive acts or practices, and in the case of food products, any false advertisement that is misleading in a material respect. Likewise, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act prohibits any labeling that is false or misleading in any particular way, which basically means that food manufacturers have to list the actual ingredients used and cannot make false claims about their food that have no basis in reality. For example, you can't lie and say that your cookies have less calories or sugar than they actually do just to sell them. You have to list the accurate calorie count and amount of sugar used. And the same legally goes for fast food restaurant advertisements, menu boards, and commercials. You can't trick diners into ordering a meal based on an image of a food item that doesn't exist in real life, which is why Burger King could be in hot water if these lawsuit claims are true. As consumers, we're expected to understand that any product is going to look a little better in an ad than it does in real life. But that line isn't always clear. It isn't always obvious when an advertisement is lying. Most of us aren't carrying around a scale to make sure our drive-thru burger weighs exactly a quarter pound. According to the King, all their Whoppers are 4-ounce patties served on 5-inch sesame seed buns. Using the bun as a baseline, we can attempt to estimate just how much bigger the advertised burgers appear to be against the IRL burgers served. In this ad, the patty advertised has a diameter of about 6 inches. Just look at how the meat hangs out over the buns. This means that the area of the patty being advertised is roughly 28.27 square inches. Now, let's pull up some of the IRL burgers in question here. First, we have this burger, which looks to have a 4.5-inch diameter, making its estimated area about 15.9 inches square. That means that the advertised burger is around 78% bigger than the real one. When it comes to volume, the difference is even more insane. Taking just the volume of the patty, the advertised patty is about 237% bigger. And let's face it, volume of the whole burger doesn't matter as much as the meat. Then we have this Whopper, which has a 4.25-inch diameter, making its estimated area about 14.9 9.19 square inches, which means the advertised burger is 99% bigger in area and 457 times bigger in volume than the IRL one. Exactly, or way more than what the lawsuit is claiming. If the 19 accusers bring forth similarly damning evidence to court, Burger King could potentially be found guilty of lying to make sales. So just how much hot French fry oil is the BK Lounge actually in? Violating the FTC Act is punishable by a civil penalty. And through the Penalty Offense Authority, the commission is allowed to seek those penalties if it can prove that the king knew his advertisements were unfair and deceptive. That civil penalty, up to $50,000 per violation. That amount adjusts every year to reflect inflation, so they're looking at a maximum fine of close to $1 million paid to the FTC. The commission's goal is to send a clear message that preying on consumers will not be profitable. As far as the civil suit goes, if Burger King is penalized by the FTC, it's likely they'd have to settle with the plaintiffs for an agreed upon amount. We won't know any exact figures unless the involved parties choose to disclose them after the trial, but an interesting possibility also lies ahead for the rest of us. In past civil lawsuit cases against unfair and deceptive practices in food advertisements, all affected customers, not just the plaintiffs who brought forth the case, were also given a small retribution payment. For example, a woman sued Jimmy John's for falsely advertising the inclusion of alfalfa sprouts on her favorite sandwich. Although Jimmy John's ultimately denied the allegations, they still agreed to settle with the plaintiff, as well as provide vouchers to all customers who dined there between February 1st, 2012 and July 21st, 2014. Those vouchers were only worth $1.40 off your next properly sprouted sandwich, but hey, it's better than nothing. In the end, if the FTC finds the king guilty, or if they decide to make a settlement, all of us Whopper enthusiasts might benefit, even if it's only a few bucks. But all those dollars and cents will eventually add up. Burger King estimates that over 1.3 billion Whoppers are sold each year worldwide, and 41 Whoppers are eaten around the world every second. Now, I'm not exactly sure how many of those billions of burgers are devoured specifically in the United States, where this lawsuit is taking place, but I'd guess it's a pretty high number, considering the fact that the king raked in $1.3 billion in revenue in the US in 2023 alone. Now, if history shows us anything, it's that the lawsuit won't go to trial for BK to lose and the entire industry to be altered forever because of the Whopper. It'll most likely be settled out of court for millions, people will be paid off, and that'll be that. Even in that case, though, it sets the precedent for a lot more legal scrutiny with all these too good to be true advertisements. With puffery, or exaggeration that no reasonable customer takes literally, like the world's best or world famous, having to be decreased significantly by fast food companies across the board so they don't become the next target. So will we and the 19 civil suit plaintiffs get rich overnight thanks to underwhelming Whoppers? Probably not. But the kingdom might have a few less treasure chests when all of this is over. And we might even start seeing ads that suddenly don't look quite as appetizing as they used to. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Buen provecho.